He found out the room number, took a deep breath, and knocked. "Come in." He opened the door and walked slowly over to the bed. I saw the baby. He's beautiful. He has a head full of hair and your eyes. Angela closed her eyes and turned her face away from Shiloh. "Don't you want to see him, Angie? He's little and he has one of those oxygen tubes on his nose. Other than that, he looks good." His tone sounded disheartened. Silence. "Angela, don't do this." "Don't do what?" she snapped at him. "Ignore me, ignore him." Finally, she faced him. "I told you in the beginning I didn't want kids. When we started hanging out, I made that clear. You agreed." Shiloh pulled up a chair beside her. "You're right, I did. And we used condoms every time except for those 2 days we were out of town. I told you I didn't have any on me and got ready to find a store. You stopped me, Angela. You said it didn't matter, that you had just had your period." She looked at him but didn't respond. "You enjoyed me that weekend as much as I enjoyed you. As a matter of fact, you said it was best." "What's your point?" she hissed. "You're acting as if this is my entire fault, as if I made him by myself. That's my point." This time Angela glared at Shiloh, her eyes filled with tears, and she quickly brushed them away. "I don't want to see him," she snapped again. "He's your son." "No, he's not. He's yours," she said in a whisper in broken words. Shiloh felt as if Angela had hit him in the stomach with a 2x4. The air left his body so quickly it knocked him back in the chair. He grabbed his head in an attempt to quell the dizziness that overtook him and regain his composure. "He's a baby, Angela. How can you be so cruel? How can you live with yourself?" He said through clenched teeth. Just as the words left his mouth, Angela's nurse came into the room to check on her and give her pain medicine. After she left, Shiloh stood to leave too. "We have to name him," he said quietly. "You pick it," was her response. With that, she closed her eyes and allowed the medicine to lull her to sleep. Shiloh stopped by the newborn intensive care unit once more to see his son before going home to rest. He held the tiny baby's hand and quietly said a prayer and vowed to always be there and care for his son no matter what. "We'll name him tomorrow," he said to the baby's nurse on his way out. As Shiloh walked to his car, he decided to phone his mother in the morning and ask her and his father to drive up from Virginia to Richmond. He needed some backup. If Angela chooses to be a butthole, he thought to himself, that doesn't mean I have to. He knew he couldn't get through the next few weeks alone. Early the next morning, Shiloh called his job to explain the situation and told them he'd be in Beta. Next, he called his parents and asked them to come to Richmond as soon as possible. Even if it was just for a few days, he could use the support. Shiloh Michael Milner hailed from New Orleans, Louisiana. He moved to Richmond in 2005 following the devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina on the city of New Orleans and the surrounding area. Although he'd been a resident of Richmond for quite a few years, he still didn't have many friends in the area. He chose to keep to himself and concentrate on making a successful life. He dated a few women over the years, but no one he wanted to settle down with. Shiloh's relationship with Angela was purely for companionship and sexual gratification, nothing more. Although he made excuses and justified their relationship in his mind, he never regretted it, that is, until now. As he climbed into his 1998 BMW 740i, he paused for a minute and thought about his past. Once again, he asked himself exactly how he had gotten to this place in his life. Shiloh loved children and always wanted a few of his own, just not like this. On a whim, he picked up his cell phone and called his cousin Louis, aka Boo Boo. Boo picked up on the third ring. "Talk to me, cuz," he said in his heavy southern accent. "What's up, man? How you doing?" Shiloh asked. It was obvious he and his cousin were close. The joy resonated in his voice. I'm good, man, I'm good. To what do I owe this early morning call? Shiloh knew that even though it was already 10 o'clock in the morning, Boo Boo was still in bed. Angie had a baby last night. I had a son. Boo Boo frowned and sat straight up in bed. Say what? I said I have a son. He was born last night. Word, you got seed, cuz? Shiloh paused and took a deep breath. He's a baby man, not a plant. What is it with you and this seed? Boo Boo could hear the disgust in his cousin's voice. It's just a saying, man, just a saying. Well, could you drop the saying and refer to my son as a son, or a boy, or a baby, or got it, man? Boo said, cutting Shiloh off. Good. You know I hate that. We are not seeds, we are people. Okay. I said, I got it, Shiloh. Now tell me about my new cousin. The two men chatted for about 30 minutes, the amount of time it took Shiloh to get to the hospital. Once he arrived, he bid his cousin goodbye and headed into the building. He decided to stop by Angela's room first and check on her. When he walked into the room, he found the bed empty and clean and the room set up for the next patient. None of Angela's belongings were anywhere to be found. Instead of panicking, he decided to step into the hall and ask the nurses if Angela had been moved. Excuse me, he said to the unit secretary. Angela Pritchard, has she been moved to another room? The young lady behind the desk looked at the computer screen in front of her. She knew that early that morning, in a flurry of drama, Angela had checked herself out against medical advice, but she wanted to appear professional. She looked up at Shiloh, and Shiloh perceived before the young lady spoke something was wrong. Mr. Miller, may I have you wait in the lounge for our nurse manager? She will be right with you. Is something wrong with Angie? Shiloh felt his chest begin to tighten. His intuition jumped into overdrive. Something he'd inherited from his Creole great-great-grandmother, and he struggled to shut it down. No, nothing's wrong with her. It's just that, Mr. Miller, please, just have a seat and wait for my manager. She'll explain everything. If the unit secretary hadn't looked as if she would wet her pants at any moment, Shiloh would have grilled her for an answer. He knew his height, along with his piercing eyes, could be intimidating. So instead of pressing the situation, he turned and headed into the lounge. No sooner than he sat down, two women entered the lounge. Mr. Milner, I'm Lucy, the mother newborn unit nurse manager, and this is Sherelle, our nurse case manager. Both women extended their hands. Lucy took no time before she jumped right in. Miss Pritchard checked herself out of the hospital early this morning. She paused as if she were giving Shiloh time to respond. What do you mean she checked herself out? She just had a baby. This time, Sherelle spoke up. It's called Against Medical Advice. AMA is the acronym we use. I know what AMA means, Shiloh shot back. Why didn't someone call me? We have a child together, for goodness sake. Mr. Milner, Miss Pritchard strongly insisted that she did not want to call you. But we did try to call you from the NICU to find out when you'd be in. Shiloh pulled his phone from his side and glanced at it. In his haste to get to the hospital, he had neglected to check for missed calls. I guess I didn't hear my phone, he said. He willed himself to calm down. That's okay, Mr. Milner, Sherelle said. She paused and then continued. Let me explain what transpired. So as you can see, Angela disappeared. In Tristan's choice, after 15 years, she comes back to claim her son. 12 years later, I'll get it, Mom, Tristan yelled to Moselle. At age 15, he was the splitting image of his father. He stood 5 feet 11 inches tall with the same mahogany brown skin tone, full lips, and slender nose. The only feature possessed by Tristan that wasn't his father's were his piercing brown eyes. The attentive way Shiloh groomed Tristan made sure his son was on his way to becoming just as conscientious as himself. Moselle and Shiloh often left Tristan in charge of his younger 11-year-old twin sisters, Maya and Amelia, when they had a date night. A responsibility Tristan took seriously. A few seconds later, Moselle heard the alarm system chime as the front door opened, but she didn't hear Tristan announce the visitor. "Who is it, Tristan?" When he didn't respond, Moselle called out from the laundry room, "Tristan, I asked who was at the door." She knew that although he was only 15, Tristan was her most dependable child. When she got no response the second time, Moselle became concerned. She looked at Amelia, who was helping her out, and then placed the clean clothes in her hands back into the dryer and headed to the door. As she turned the corner from the kitchen into the hallway leading to the foyer, she heard Maya say, "I think it's his mother." Tristan stood face to face with a woman whose eyes mirrored his. He heard Moselle ask who was at the door, but for the life of him, he couldn't answer. "May I help you?" Moselle's voice sounded from behind Tristan, and then he felt her hands on his shoulders as she moved him and stood between him and the stranger at the door. "Yes, I'm here to see my son." The woman's voice and stance became aggressive. "I think you have the wrong house." The woman's eyes narrowed. She observed Moselle for a second and then settled her gaze on Tristan. "Wrong house? No, I don't think I have the wrong house. My name is Angela Pritchard, and I am Tristan's mother." Moselle tilted her head to the side and stared at Angela for a minute. If the woman was Angela, Moselle tried to fathom how she had found them. Furthermore, how did she muster the audacity to show up at their home after 15 years claiming to be his mother? "I don't know who you are or how you think you know my son, but I'm afraid you're sadly mistaken. You see, I'm Tristan's mother, and I suggest you get off my property right now before I call the police." This time, Moselle's posture matched Angela's. "Really? Yes, really." Moselle took a step forward toward Angela. At the same time, the twins, Maya and Amelia, placed themselves in front of their brother. Angela smirked at the protective bravado shared between Moselle and her daughters. Tristan knew his sisters would fight for him in a heartbeat, but he had just seen a side of Moselle he had never seen before. He knew she could be protective of her children, and it made him feel safe. Yet he had a curiosity about the woman at the door. Shiloh and Moselle never hid the fact that he had a birth mother out there somewhere. Although he figured out he was abandoned at birth, his parents never put Angela down. "Angela, Maya, Amelia, and Tristan, you three go into the laundry room and finish emptying the dryer for me. I'll be there in a minute." Moselle spoke without taking her eyes off Angela. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "Let me explain something to you," she said to Angela. "You come here claiming to have given birth to Tristan, but you decided you didn't want him the minute you disappeared from the hospital without a word to Shiloh. Now, I'm the one who loves him. I'm the one raising him. So what you're not going to do is show up at my door 15 years later and disrupt his life." You may have been raising Tristan, but as his birth mother, I have a right to see my son. Moselle squinted. "You gave up your rights, Angela. I've adopted Tristan, and he's my son. Now I'm going to ask you one more time to leave my property and stay away from my son, or I will have you arrested for trespassing." Angela gave Moselle a head-to-toe once-over and then turned on her heels and headed to her car. As Moselle watched her drive off, she knew her advice had fallen on deaf ears. The look of insolence in Angela's eyes told Moselle this was just the beginning.